2.
Yes.
Rad. Okay. Alright guys, so my name is Kate. Today I'm going to be reading you a personal essay that I wrote in my creative writing class. It is about prom, chick flicks, and lowered expectations. Alright. As far as I'm aware, we're all suckers. Voluntary suckers, yes, but suckers nonetheless. We're suckers for believing in things that aren't real. I don't mean this in the supernatural sense, but rather in the sense that we have a belief, reliance, and tendency towards unrealistic expectations. I used to tell people I hated chick flicks. This idea of being a stereotypical teenage girl was repulsive to me, and I did my best to avoid it. During the same time period, however, I would text my friends at about 2 in the morning, and I would get a response the next day asking me why I was becoming nocturnal. My go-to response, of course, was I couldn't sleep, but a more truthful response would have been more along the lines of I was crying over Kat's poem and 10 Things I Hate About You, which is one of the sappiest, most unrealistic chick flicks of the late 90s, maybe of all time. Pretty soon I began to understand that secretly being a stereotypical teenage girl didn't mean I was any less of one. A little while after this realization, I was asked to and attended my high school prom. Right off the bat, I fantasized the princess dress that would fit me just right. I pictured my date gazing at me as I would descend from the staircase in all my fairy tale beauty. I proceeded to relentlessly piece together moments of every chick flick I had ever seen until I had constructed the perfect prom night in my head. Going to prom with my then boyfriend, naturally, I assumed the slow dance would be the romantic pinnacle of my high school career. In my head, it played out like in the movies. My head resting on his chest, his arms wrapped around my waist. The world would melt away as we would sway back and forth in perfect harmony. It would be peaceful and graceful and romantic. And when prom night came, it would not happen that way at all. My date and I were dancing very close to each other. Romantically speaking, however, that means nothing, considering the fact that being more than 2 inches away from anybody was physically impossible. That rhythmic sway that I had imagined was less of a sway and more of a 1-inch shuffle from left to right. This shuffle resulted in a lot of, "Oh, was that your foot? I'm sorry," and other various grunts, exclamations, and jumps of surprise as we bumped into every couple around us. Pretty soon, the 1-inch shuffle turned into simply shifting our weight from one foot to the other, and an avoidance of large movements entirely. Our feet snagged on the tulle trains of girls' dresses, and we ended up staring not deeply into each other's eyes, but vigilantly at the floor to avoid stepping on our friends' very expensive dresses and shiny shoes. In reality, there was no cuddly nestling my head into my date's neck. Even though I had deliberately worn flats and his shoes gave him another half-inch of height, I was still taller than him, and so my head nestling would have felt something similar to how I would imagine a giraffe would feel if it got stuck ducking its head under a door frame. The thing is, all of this struggling and shuffling and readjusting and attempting to still look endearing as I repeatedly bumped into the people around me, it felt like an eternity. I began to wish the slow dance would just end already. Albert Einstein has this quote, and it says that putting your hand on a hot plate for 2 seconds can feel like 2 hours, while talking to a pretty girl for 2 hours can feel like 2 seconds. The slow dance was my hot plate. I rewatched A Cinderella Story recently. There's this magical scene in which Austin, played by Chad Michael Murray, and Sam, played by Hilary Duff, share their own romantic slow dance. While on a walk outside of school dance, the two of them just happened to stumble upon a white gazebo, illuminated with soft, glowing fairy lights, and adorned with bright roses climbing the walls. Austin offers his hand to Sam and asks her to dance. Sam, ever the realist, reminds him that there's no music. He shrugs, and suddenly a string quartet that just happens to be passing by, without even being asked, begins to play the Goo Goo Dolls' I'll Be. The couple laughs and they dance, a beautiful ballroom waltz that they both just happen to know. Austin twirls Sam around like a princess and offers her a pristine white rose from the walls of the gazebo. It's absurd and ridiculous and something that genuinely only happens in movies. But as I watch it, I can't help but feel warm inside. This sort of happy glow overcomes me, and I catch myself once again thinking about my slow dance. Decidedly, I realized it didn't live up to my expectations because I did not ask Chad Michael Murray to be my prom date, and that was its only flaw. Okay, maybe not the only flaw, but Chad Michael Murray would have changed the situation entirely, I have no doubts. Instead, I think about why I let my expectations get so high. Obviously, people in the real world don't just stumble upon enchanting white gazebos. They don't get Chad Michael Murray to be their prom date. They don't get his personal string quartet, and they certainly don't do choreographed ballroom dances. I know this. We all know this. And yet, we vie for these wonderful, spontaneous moments and allow our minds to wander and fabricate perfection. I can't count how many times I've thought of perfect little scenarios in my head. None of these scenarios have come to fruition, and as time passes, these movies I make in my head wander and are forgotten. In the end, these imagined scenarios and movie moments are not real, and they're not important. They don't tell the truth. My truth is in my friends and I doing the wrong dance move to a line dance, cramming everyone into the photo booth and somehow managing not to cut anybody off, taking a wrong turn on the way to the dance, but getting to hear our favorite song play on the radio before we had to get out of the car. These jumbled, clumsy experiences are what I remember the most. The important thing is not to cling to this idea of perfection, but to pay attention to the imperfect. In the end, I found it's the moments that don't go quite according to plan that I cherish the most, not the things I've orchestrated to perfection. So, I'll keep being a sucker, wishing for white gazebos and roses, but I will smile back at my cramped, unscripted slow dances just the same.